Hi, this is Ali Arango, and today I'm going to show you how to make a quick city block in Blender 2.79. So let's get started. Okay, if this is your first time in Blender, I recommend you go to File, User Preferences, go to Input, and then choose Select with left click. Blender's default select is with right click, and this may confuse you if you're coming from Adobe programs or other 3D programs. Also, while you're in here, click on Add-ons. Put a check mark next to 3D View: 3D Navigation. Put a check mark next to 3D View: Display Tools. Scroll down. Put a check mark next to Mesh: Auto Mirror. Put a check mark next to Mesh: F2, Mesh: Inset Polygon, Mesh: Loop Tools, as well as Mesh Relax. Scroll down more. Put a check mark next to Pie Menu: 3D Viewport Pie Menus Official, as well as Pie Menu: UI Pie Menu Official. Okay, a lot of times when we start doing Blender tutorials, we get rid of our faithful cube here. This time we're going to keep the cube. With this cube selected, we're going to press S to scale on the Z axis. And we're basically just making this cube look like a basic building. With the cube scaled like that, what we're going to do now is we're going to go near the bottom. We're going to left click, go to edit mode. Here in edit mode, what we're going to do is press the U key. This brings up our UV mapping menu, and then we're going to select Smart UV Project. We're then going to have this Smart UV Project menu pop up. We're going to click OK. We're going to look to our bottom left screen. There's it almost looks like an upside down triangle, like with stripes going through it. You're going to left click there, hold your mouse, and drag to the side. When you did that, you just split your screen. With this screen now split, you're going to look to that bottom left-hand side again, left click, and then select UV Image Editor. Okay, now with this UV Image Editor open, what this UV Image Editor is, by the way, is this is just this 3D object laid out flat here so we can put textures on this. So with this open, what we're going to do is look towards the bottom of our screen. We're going to click open. We're then going to go towards a brick texture. So this brick texture that you see here, I just went online. There's actually an interesting new thing in Google where you can actually click more tools and select images that are able to be reused legally, which is very cool. So if you just search for a brick texture, this is just a common brick texture. So when I left click on this, I'm then going to click open. Okay, so when I clicked open, now this brick texture popped up right here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to look to my right-hand screen. I'm going to click, then go to object mode. Here in object mode, by the way, we're currently in Blender Renderer. With this selected on, what I'm going to do is hold Shift, press A, and then I'm going to go to Lighting Sets, and then I'm going to select Add Try Lighting. When I did that, these lights right here popped up. Okay, these lights are currently only available in 2.79. So I'm going to roll my mouse to zoom in. I'm going to click on this light right here. I'm now going to look to my upper right hand menu. I'm going to click here on my light menu. Then where I see the energy right here, it says 3.000. I'm going to click here and I'm going to change this to 0.2. Okay, now with all that done, I'm going to look towards the bottom of my screen. I'm going to left click and I'm going to change my viewport shading from solid to material. I'm going to zoom in so we can see our building, or it's going to be our building more. Now I'm going to click on our building. I'm going to click on my material tab to the upper right. I'm then going to click on the texture tab to the right of that. Where it says type, I'm going to click and change this to image or movie. I'm then going to scroll down, and because I loaded this brick texture here, I'm going to click this arrow under image and select brick texture. I'm going to scroll down more where you see mapping and this says coordinates generated. I'm going to click here and change this to UV. Okay, now we see these this brick texture right here. What we're going to do now is scroll down more. And what we want to pay attention to is right here. So where it says mapping, and then we see offset, and then the size is what we're interested in. So we see X1, Y1, Z1. For X1, we're going to enter in 10. For Y, we're going to enter in 10. We'll zoom in to take a look. Looks like that might be too big, so let's try 5. 5 looks better. Okay. Okay, when we look at these bricks, they're vertical. I would rather have them be going, their pattern be going left to right rather than up and down. So with the building selected, you can tell it's selected because it has that orange highlight around it. I'm going to left click near the bottom, go to edit mode. I'm going to look to my left-hand window, my UV image editor. I'm going to press A to select all of the parts that make up our UV. I'm going to press R and then 90 and then enter to lock that in. Now we can see that these bricks are going from left to right. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button. Right here, these particular bricks are going up and down. So I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click. I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to click here. And when I clicked here, this face, you can see the UV right here. So with this face selected here and looking at this UV right here, I'm going to press R to rotate on R to rotate 90. And then I can either left click or press enter. So I'll press enter. And now these are, set up so they look left to right, like these ones right here. When I say ones, I'm talking about this face looks like this face. So I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to go to my display tab. And I went here so I have access to the ability to easily switch my view right here. I'm going to click to go to front view. These lights right here, you can bring these into Blender. Just the way that I brought them all in at the same time, that is, as far as I know, unique to Blender 2.79. This is a little dark, so I'm going to click this light right here. Oh, I'm in edit mode, so I'm going to go to object mode. Now that I'm in object mode, I can click here. I'm going to click the here to get to my light menu, and I'm going to change the energy to 0.4 just to make this brighter as well as easier to see. So now that we have our brick texture here, I'm going to hover here, pull this to the side just so we have more room to work here. Okay, when you look on our textures here, you can see, they're not. It's not a perfect. It's not perfect as far as texture placement. However, I had done tutorials on making buildings as well as making cities before, but we didn't use textures on those buildings. So I wanted to do something that I could, show you how to do this and how to get a texture on and still have the process of making this be fairly quick like the other tutorials. So. What we're going to do now is we're going to pay attention to our 3D cursor here. The 3D cursor is important because in Blender, where the 3D cursor is at is where objects tend to come into Blender at. So what you're going to do is hold Shift, press A. This brings up our Add To menu. I'm then going to go to Mesh. And then I'm going to select a cube to bring a cube in. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate. So here's our cube. I'm going to press S to scale this cube down. I'm going to take our manipulator and push this out. I'm going to move this cube up. This cube is essentially going to become our windows. I'm going to press S to scale on the X-axis to make this cube less narrow. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z-axis. I'm just going to press S to scale to just scale the whole thing down. So I'm going to press S to scale to make that smaller. And what you want to do is have this cube so it's intersecting with your building here. Okay, we're going to click on our cube here. We're then going to click on the wrench, which gives us the ability to add modifiers. We're going to left click. And then what we want to do is add an array modifier to this cube, which is going to be our windows. So here are our array modifier options right here. If I hover my mouse here and then left click and drag to the side, see where this says X, Y, Z. This reason why this is important is even though this is grayed out, which is just think of this as this X, Y, Z. So X, going left and right here. So where it says 1 here, we can see here is our cube, and then with this setting, there's another cube coming out from this array modifier, right? So I'm going to left click and drag, and by doing that, you can see now I have this duplicate here of this cube here. So now I'm going to take this count up to 3. Okay, so now that I have the count up to 3, I'm going to hold shift for finer control and then left click and drag like that. Now I want to have some windows going down. So what I'm going to do is with our array modifier here, I'm going to left click on copy. Okay, I'm going to roll my mouse wheel to zoom back. You can see there's these 3 cubes here. When I copied, we have this other array modifier right here. So there's 2 array modifiers, right? So the array modifier allows you to copy objects. You can copy them, very quickly, and it's very nice because I like it particularly here for the spacing between the objects. So when I clicked copy, this appeared, and this is a copy of this, so that's why you see the effect basically being doubled. What we want to do is see this X here. This setting is the same as this setting. We want to left click here and change this to 0 and then press enter. We want to skip past this Y and go right to this Z, right? So now what we're going to do is left click and drag. Okay, let's go the other way. Down like this. And I actually want there to be 4 rows of windows. So I'm going to left click here. And now we have these, 4 rows of windows like this, which is what we want. Okay, what we're going to do now is we are going to look towards our array modifier. Our array modifiers, we have 2 of them. We're going to look to the top here and we're going to select apply all. You could have also clicked apply and then apply on both the modifiers. So before there was 1 cube that the array modifier was making it look like there was a bunch of cubes. Now these cubes are actually here. What we're going to do now is look towards the bottom of our screen. We're going to click on our pivot point options. Blender's default pivot point is the median point. We're going to change this to the 3D cursor. We're now going to, with the cubes here selected on, we're going to go to edit mode. The reason why we put the 3D cursor, change the pivot point to 3D cursor is because we have these cubes here set up to make windows here. However, we want windows here as well as here, as well as here. So by having the pivot point be the 3D cursor, we can pivot these windows very easily to all of the different sides we need them to be on. So with all of these windows selected, we're going to hold shift, press D, then right click. So we have a duplicate of this now. Now we're going to press, and it doesn't look like there's anything different, but there's a duplicate of all these blocks right on top of the other blocks. So now what I'm going to do with all of those blocks selected is I'm going to press R to rotate on the Z axis 90, and then I'm going to press enter to lock that in. We have all of these selected now, right? We're going to hold shift D, then right click to get these cubes to stay in place. We're then going to press R to rotate on the Z axis 90, and then left click to lock that in. By the way, if you need for your 3D cursor to be perfectly centered in the middle of your building, or for this to work, if you got your 3D cursor off center, or you press Shift C, your 3D cursor will be right in the center of your scene. So hopefully your turning went okay for you. So we have one more group of cubes to do. So with these selected, we're going to hold Shift, press D, right click, and then we're going to press R to rotate on the Z axis 90, and then press enter to lock that in. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. We're currently in edit mode. What I'm going to do now is go to well, we currently are on our 3D cursor is currently our pivot point. Let's go to object mode. We're going to go to our pivot point. We're going to change this from the 3D cursor back to Blender's default pivot point, which is the medium point. I'm going to go to our display tab, select front to go back to our front view. I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan, hold the middle mouse button just to get a better look at this. Now I'm going to click on our building. I'm going to select add modifier. I'm going to select Boolean. For the operation, I'm going to change this from intersect to difference. And then for object, I'm going to click here. I'm going to select our cube, one of our cubes. And then with that selected, I'm going to select apply. Okay, so now with that done, I'm going to click on these cubes here, for instance. I'm going to go to edit mode. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover here, over here. I'm going to and here is over this cube. I'm going to press L. So when my mouse is hovered over a cube and I press L, I select that entire cube. So now I'm going to take this manipulator and push out. And now you can see this right here is left. And what this is we basically use these blocks to make holes in our building. So that's what you see here, and that's what we wanted. So why am I pushing these blocks out like this? Well, there's a couple reasons. One reason is we want to put window sills in, right? So I'm going to take these blocks, I'm going to push them out here. I'm going to zoom back some. I'm going to hold shift, press D, and right click. Move these blocks here like this. I'm going to go back to our pivot point, and this time I'm going to change our pivot point from its median point to individual origins. And the reason why I did that is I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis like this. And what this is allowing me to do is to scale all of these blocks down at the same time so that now I can push them back here like this. And I'm basically trying to make this look like windowsills. Okay. Okay, now what we're going to do is press A to deselect. I'm going to click here, just the front face this time. So I left click, now I'm holding shift. And the reason why I'm holding shift and clicking is so I can select more than one face at a time. I'm not using L because I don't want to select all of this part of the cube. I'm going to hold shift, press D, and then right click. I'm going to push this out like this. Zoom back so you can see what's going on. I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click. I duplicated these, right? Now I'm going to pull these back like this. You can see they're lined up, you know, pretty much with the window sill there like that. Okay, with these faces selected here, I'm going to hold shift, press D, and then right click. Push these forward. I'm going to reselect these faces here. I'm going to press I to inset. Inset's a way of, it's almost like extruding. So I'm going to left click there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press E to extrude. I'm going to right click. I'm going to push in just to give some thickness to the windows there. Now with all of these different windows selected, I'm going to press Y. And when I did that, I separated these faces from this other geometry here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to push that geometry forward. I'm going to press W, select subdivide, and I'm going to look to my lower left-hand corner where I see the subdivide menu in our tools menu. I'm going to take this number of cuts up to 2. I'm then going to hold Control, press B, hold Shift, and drag. And this is just a quick way of getting detail for the windows. I'm then going to hold Shift, press D, then right click. I duplicated all of this geometry here. Now I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, and then I'm pulling to get some thickness to this geometry here. Let me zoom in so you can see what I did. See what I did there? Okay, so I still have this face selected on here. We want to make this, things fairly easy for us to work. So what we're going to do is all of these faces we had selected, we have, some part of them selected. So we're going to hold Control and press L, and that kind of lets you, it lets you grab the entire object of a piece of geometry that you currently have selected. To make these easily to reselect, we're going to look to this menu here. We're going to click, and when I say here, it's the upper right-hand corner. People were talking about me saying here, they're looking down, and I take notes when I watch tutorials, so I'm trying to give you some direction if I say here. So the upper right-hand side. Okay, so we see vertex groups right here. We're going to click plus, and then we're going to select assign. And what that did is I can press A now to deselect this geometry. However, I can then press select and have that geometry selected there again. Okay, so with all of this geometry selected, we can easily put this back into place like that. And then for this, I'm just going to a side view here. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to press B for box select, and I'm dragging a box. Oh, I'll go to vertex select. I drag a box right here around this unwanted geometry. So I don't have all of the geometry. However, I can, when I say all of them, I have like some selected here, but not there, right? Roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. Now I can press Control L to select all of this. Then I can press X to bring up our delete menu and then choose faces to delete. Okay, so what we can do now is let's go to face select. Hover here, press L, 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 L. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate. L, 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 L. Shift and middle mouse button to pan. L, 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 L. We'll press X, which brings up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. I'll zoom back. I'll hover here, press L, 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 L. Then press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, in a very similar way to how we placed this geometry before, this building, even though we see it, we're actually in the edit mode here. So what we're going to do is we're going to press B for box select to select this geometry here. I'm going to go to vertices, or vertex select. I'm going to press B, and so as long as you grab some of this geometry, you can hold Control, press L. We have our 3D cursor here in the center, so I'm going to click here. I'm going to select 3D cursor. And if I right click here, see the 3D cursor is away. Now I can hold Shift C, and then the 3D cursor is right back in the center again. So with the 3D cursor set for being the pivot point, and with this geometry selected, we can hold Shift, press D. I move the geometry just so I can see. I'm going to right click. Now I'm going to press R to rotate on the Z axis, 90, and then left click to lock that in. I'm going to hold Shift, press D, right click, then press R to rotate on the Z axis, 90, and left click to lock that in. With this selected here, I'm going to hold Shift, press D to duplicate, right click, then press R to rotate on the Z axis, 90, and then left click to lock that in. Okay, I'm going to go to my display tab. I'm going to click front so I know where I'm at. Let's press, I rolled the mouse wheel to zoom in. Let's press A to deselect. Let's come to object mode so we can take a look. Okay. Now go back to front view. We have all of these things right here, just to make it easy for us to work. So these are currently connected to those windows there, right? I'm going to press B for box select, draw a box around here. I'm going to hold Control, press L to make sure I have all of this selected. Now I'm going to press P to bring up our separate menu. Then I'm going to choose selection to separate. So now this geometry is separate from our window geometry. So now I'm going to click here, go to object mode. I'm going to go to our pivot point and change this from the 3D cursor back to Blender's default pivot point, which is the medium point. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click here, go to edit mode, hover here, press L, and then I'm going to press P to bring up our separate menu again. I'm going to choose separate. I'm going to go to object mode. I could have brought in another cube. I just chose to use this. Because I chose to grab this cube, I'm going to use this to make a door. Our pivot point is over here, all right? So typically the pivot point for an object is centered on the object. We can easily recenter the pivot point. So now this object is a separate object from these objects, right? I'm going to go to object, transform, and then I'm about to click origin to geometry. Now if you look up in the building, see where my manipulator is at, you'll see that even though I'm selected on that cube to the right, there's an orange dot up from where I'm at, right? Now when I click this origin to geometry, that dot, which is the pivot point, will move to our currently selected block. So I'm going to left click, and now you can see right there, you know. So that's what you want. I'm going to click to go to front view. I'm going to move this to the side here. We're currently in front perspective view. I want this to be in the front. Like this. So I'm going to click to go back to front view. I'm then going to click view perspective / orthographic to place this here. So what I'm doing now is I'm about to make a door. I'm going to press S to make this door bigger. I'm just looking at these and lining this up. And what I want to do is take this, very similar to before, push this into our building there. And we're about to use this to make a shape, you know, from our building. Okay, so we're going to click on our building. We're going to click on our wrench. We're going to select add modifier. We're going to select Boolean. We're going to change this operation from intersect to difference. We're going to click here, then select here, and then we're going to click apply. So now when we click here and bring this out, you can see there's our shape there. So I'm going to push this back for now. I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to hover here, press L, and I'm going to press S to scale in the Z axis like this. Push this down like this. Hold shift in the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to hold control in the middle mouse button to zoom in. Go to object mode. I just went to object mode just to move this out of the way more. And I want to make a staircase, you know, kind of deal right here. So I'm going to go back to edit mode. I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click, bring this down like this, and out. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis. There we go. I press it like this to make this wider. I'm going to press shift D. Bring this down like that. Press S to scale on the x-axis like that. Okay, I'm gonna left click here, go back to object mode. I'm gonna zoom back, I'm gonna click here, move this to the side more, I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna right click here, hold shift, press A, this brings up our add to menu. I'm gonna select plane, I'm gonna press S to scale in the x-axis to thin that plane out. I wanna make a fire escape, so I'm pushing this plane near the bottom of the windows here. I'm going to press S to scale on the y-axis. See that preview line? That's how we can know how we're scaling. See that green line coming out? So when I left click, that line's going to disappear. Okay, so with this plane selected, I'm going to left click here, go to edit mode. I'm going to press W, select subdivide. When I look to our number of cuts over here, I'm going to take this to 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we'll do 4. So we have 4 cuts in this, right? So what we're going to do is hold Control, press B, hold Shift for fine control, and then we're using our bevel option. This. And what we're going to do is we're going to hold Shift, press D, and then right click to get this geometry here. We're going to press E to extrude, right click, and then pull that extrusion up so we have thickness to the geometry. This here, I want this. I want the edges of this, but I don't want all this detail in. So the way I can get this back to being like the plane, because it is the shape, the general shape that we want for that, is I can press, with this selected, I can press X, and then I can go to dissolve edges. And now this is right back to being like our original plane. So with this selected, now I can press I for inset. Okay, maybe I cannot select I for inset. Oh, wait a second, let's try it again. Face select, now press I for inset. There we go. So now I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis like this. I'm going to select this middle plane. I'm going to press X and then select faces to delete that plane. And now I'm going to hover here, press L, press E to extrude, right click, and then just give that some thickness like that. Okay, so now we're going to, we have this partially selected. Let's hold Control, press L to select that whole piece, and we'll bring this up like this. Press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here, press L. I'm going to press Shift D and then right click. I'm going to press R to rotate on the Y axis. See the green line is showing us how we're going to rotate. Right click, R to rotate on the Y axis, -90. Okay. So I'm just moving this. So I rotated on a 90-degree axis just to give us like a side piece to this fire escape thing. I'm going to take this piece, hold Shift, press D, right click, push this to the other side like that. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to go to object mode. Just for now, let's throw a material in there. We'll click new. Make this like a darker gray material, like that. I'm going to go back into here. We'll select these pieces here. We'll press X and then choose faces to delete. Choose X, faces to delete. Let's take this section here. I'm going to hover here, press L. I'm going to hover here. Can we press? No, we can't. Okay, for here, I am going to hold Control, press R, and I'm putting loop cuts here. I think I wrote 5 or 6 times. 7, 8. I put loop cuts here, and the reason why I did that was holding Shift now. I wanted to be able to bring up bars for here. So I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, and then pull these up like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Shift and then Alt to select around here. So I have the top part selected, right? So because I'm holding Alt, when I clicked on the side here, I selected all the way around here, all the way around here, all the way around here. And I already had the top selected. So now I'm going to hold Shift, press D, and then right click. I'm going to move these pieces over here like that. Now I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is we need some steps going down. So let's go to object mode. Right click here to put my 3D cursor around this area. I'm going to hold. You got to rotate to see where it's at. See, I thought it was here. Now it's there. Okay, and if you want to see how it's like hard to tell, one of the things you can do is we'll go to edit mode for here. Then we can actually select. We'll select this piece right here. Then we'll hold Shift, press S, and then we'll choose cursor to selected. So the 3D cursor will be right there. Now we can go to object mode, hold Shift, press A, go to mesh, bring in plane. So there's our plane. We'll press S to scale this down. I'm going to press S to scale on the X-axis, S to scale on the Y-axis. And this is basically going to be a step. This might be a little difficult for you to see there. Okay, so why did I make this plane its own separate object? The reason I did that was so I could go to the modifiers, click here, select array. See, our array modifier currently is here. We don't want that. It's coming out to the side. So we'll click here, press 0, enter. Instead, we'll go wait a second. Okay, yeah, we want this like that. Back to 0. Now when I click this constant offset, that's what I was trying to do over there. Now you can see we have this, you know, going down, so now we can increase this like this. I should be able to hold shift like that. Then I'm going to look to where this gets near the bottom of there. And that looks good. As far as it going down, I'm going to make this more steep like that. I'm going to go to our material tab, click new. When I click new, I have this new material, right? If I look to here and then I click one of these arrows, I can see this material that is on the rest of our fire escape there. So I'll left click this, and now this has the same color. Okay, so now that we have this, we have these flat planes. What we're going to do is go to our modifier here. We're going to left click here, and then we're going to select solidify. And the solidify modifier makes things thicker. So we'll go like this. And now we have, you know, thickness to these steps here. Okay, so now we need to have it's not look like it's floating, so I'm going to click here, go to edit mode. That's one of the nice things with mechanical things. You can borrow different pieces. I'm going to hold shift and alt. I'm holding alt so I can select all of the faces going around here. I'm going to hold shift and press D to duplicate. I'm going to right click, push this down. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis like this. Press R to rotate on the X axis. And generally try to line this up with these steps. I'll press R to rotate on the X axis like that. I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click, push these to the other side like this. Just hold them in a mouse button to take a look. I'll press A to deselect. Okay, now I'm going to go to object mode. I'm going to click here on our steps, and then I'm going to select apply all. So now with that done, I'm going to hold shift, then left click here. Let me make sure make sure this has no modifiers on it. Good. So I'm clicking back on our steps now, holding shift and then left clicking here. Now I'm not clicking on our steps. I'm clicked on the steps now. Now I'm going to hold shift and click here. And then I'm going to hold control, then press J. So now these steps are a piece of this other, a part of this other geometry. They're all one object now. Okay, so with that being the case, I'm going to click here. I'm going to select array. I'm going to take this X right here. I'm going to change this to 0. And instead, I'm going to make this go down. I can hold shift for fine control. I'm just looking to see the steps basically touch the bottom there. Now that we have this set up, we can click, well, let me show you, this is pretty cool. So we can click here, and just like that, now we have, you know, fire escape. Pretty cool. Okay, now that we have that, let's click on our building. Let's go to edit mode. I'm going to select this top here, this top face here. So we're on face select. I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click. And now I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, extrude this up. I'm then going to press I for inset. Yep, not too much. That. It's kind of difficult to see. I'll click here so you can see. I'm going to change this to solid so you can see what's going on there. So now I'm going to press E to extrude, right click. If you're wondering like why I right click, like you can see the extrusion line telling us how we're going to go. Why do I right click? I just like having the control. It almost seems like when it's E to extrude, I have to extrude in the direction right there. When I right click, I can choose when I want to. So you could just as easily, press E to extrude, see the line that goes down and push down as well. Okay, what we're going to do is with face select on, we'll select this face here. We'll hold shift, hold alt, then click here. So by holding alt, we were able to select this entire loop of faces. I'm going to hold shift and select this top part. Now I'm selecting below the top part. Holding the middle mouse button to rotate. I let go of shift, by the way. I re-hold shift so I don't lose the selection. And now with that done, I'm going to left click here, drag this out to the side. And I'm going to press I and then Smart UV project just for this part right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press X and then I'm going to select open. I'll click these little 4 squares right here. I'm going to select this concrete here. And then I'm going to select open there. I'm going to left click near the bottom and then I'm going to select material. I'm going to go to our material tab to our upper right. We have this brick material right here, right? I'm going to go to the upper right plus because there's a plus here and there's a plus, beneath. So now that I have this blank space, I'm going to select new. And then with this selected, I'm going to go to the texture tab, select new. I'm going to click this arrow and then select the concrete. And then with that selected, and the coordinates being UV, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to our material tab and I'm going to select assign. And what that did was that gave me this concrete you see there. And we can go just like we did before down. So I'm back on the texture tab now. See where it says offset and it has 1, 1, 1. We can try changing this to 10. Press enter. 10, then press enter. Trying to think if I like it like that or not. I guess that's. Let's try 5. Oops. 5. Yeah, I like 5 better. Okay, I'm gonna go to edit mode. Only reason I'm coming to edit mode is so that I can select this face here. I'm gonna hold shift, press S. I'm going to choose cursor to selected. That put our 3D cursor right there. With the 3D cursor right there, I'm going to go back to object mode. I'm going to hold shift, press A. This brings up our add to menu. I'm then going to select cube. So there's our cube. I'm going to press S to scale. We're making like one of those doorways where people come out on top of, buildings. I'm going to go to edit mode here. I'm going to press E to extrude. Bring that back some. Press S to scale. Push that down. Something like that. I'm going to click here. I'm going to press I for inset. Bring this in like this. Left click. I want this to be like a I just rolled in. I'm holding shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to press Y. When I press Y, I separated that face off. Now I'm going to hold Control, press R to put a loop cut in. So I left click once, so I have the loop cut there. Now I'm going to press S to scale. On the Y axis, then I'm left clicking there. So I press A to deselect, I'm pressing L, now I'm pushing this in some like that. I'm going to go to Phase Select, select both of these. Look at that. That's interesting look. I'm going to press E to extrude. Just bring that out some like that. I'm going to press A and make this bigger. I'll select this face, hold shift, press D to duplicate this. I'll press E to extrude. That. I'll hover here, press L, press S to scale on the Z axis like this. I guess I'm thinking of like, you kind of see like those air conditioner unit or other things that are on the top of buildings. I'll press A to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is I'm going to hold shift, press C. What that did was that centered our 3D cursor. I'm going to give us more room here. I'm going to hold shift, press A to bring up our add to menu. I'm going to go to mesh. I'm in the object mode currently. I'm going to select plane, press S to scale. I'm making a plane about big enough to hold about 3 buildings. What I'm doing now, see how I'm moving this up? I'm looking right here. So as I move the manipulator, I'm looking to see where this starts to disappear. Okay, actually right here, let's push that down. Not too much. So what we're going to do is go to edit mode, press E to extrude, right click. I'm moving this so I can see this being our plane, so I can see how far I'm going to come up. I'm going to hold shift. Here, okay, I'm selected on the top now. Now I'm holding shift. Just pull up. Now look at that. You don't want that. So we're going to press G and then Z. Now hold shift. Yeah, because you want to be straight up and down. I press G, then Z. pan holding shift. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. What I'm going to do now is go to edge select. I'm going to select this edge here, holding the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to zoom back. Holding control, the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm holding shift. The reason why I'm holding shift is I selected here. If I didn't hold shift and I selected here, I would have deselected there. I'm holding shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm letting go of shift to rotate. Holding control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. Holding shift and the middle mouse button to pan. Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. Now holding shift so I don't lose the other selections. Let go of shift. I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm re-holding shift and then left clicking on this edge right here. Now I'm letting go of shift again. Okay, so why did I do that? The reason why I did that was we have a basic plane here. However, with these edges selected, we can hold control, press B, hold shift, and now we're able to bevel. So I held control B and I was able to bevel in like that. So now I'll press A to deselect. Okay, so now with that, I'm gonna go to face select here. I'm gonna press I and then push in. About like that. I'm going to hold control to zoom in. I'm about to push down to give this some depth, so I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, then I'm going to press G, and then Z. Now I'm holding shift. Other way. There we go. I like that. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go to object mode. With this selected, I'm going to press H. I'm actually going to press Z. Go to wireframe, select all of this right here, press Z, go to solid. I could have also selected here to go to solid. And now I'm going to hold shift, press D, and then right click. Pull this to the side like this. Hold shift, press D, right click. I'll press R to rotate on Z axis 90 like that. I go back to material mode. For this selected, I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click. Push this over here like this. Okay, I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. Held the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Let's click on this building right here. I'm then going to go to edit mode. I'm going to hover here, press L. I'm going to go to the material settings for this building. I'm going to go to the plus this to the right to add a new material. Once I have that new material and I'm only selected on this bottom piece, not this top piece, I'm going to go to the texture tab, scroll up, select new, then open, and I took this brick texture, I brought this into GIMP and I desaturated it to make it gray. So you can either search for gray brick, or if you use something like GIMP is a free image manipulation program, you can change the color there, but I'm selecting a gray texture. I'm selecting open image, and then now with this selected, I'm going to scroll down. We have our offset here, our size. I'm going to change this to 5, then click here and then select 5, and then now with that texture set up. You see no changes here yet because I have to go back to the material tab. Here's the new material that I made. I'm then going to select assign. And now, if I go to object mode, you can see this is just gray, gray bricks instead of the red bricks. Okay, one of the ways we can make these buildings look different from one another is by changing the color on these windowsills. So I clicked on the windows, or windows and the windowsills. Now going to the bottom of the page, I'm going to select edit mode. I'm now going to hold shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm on face select. I'm selecting one of the faces of the windowsill. I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. Control and the middle mouse button zooms in like very smoothly compared to just rolling the mouse wheel. For some reason, this works best when it's... This thing I'm about to show you works best when you select a face that's facing where these steps are at. So with this selected, you can hover over this, press L. That's what you want, not just a face. You want to select this entire thing. And you want this entire windowsill that's facing towards these steps. You're then going to go to select similar, and then you're going to select area. Okay, so that grabbed the windowsills but not the entire thing. So to do that, you're going to hold control, press L. Now you have all of the windowsills. So now you're going to go to your material tab, select new, pick a color that you want. I'm going to pick a bluish color here, it's darker. And then with that color there, I am going to hold control, press I, and then select new. Or the plus is what I meant, to the right. I'm going to select new now. I'll make it fairly dark gray. Then I'm going to select assign. So now I have a different color for the windows. The area around the windows. And I want it more blue than purple, so I'm going to go back here. And since that's already assigned, I can just change this without having to select assign again. And it looks bright. There we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on these windowsills here now. Okay, and I'm going to go to edit mode, hover here, press L, go to select similar, choose area, hold control, press L, go to my material tab, select new, pick like a brownish color here. I'm going to select assign. I'm now going to hold control, press I, that selects everything but the windowsill. I'm going to go to the plus to the right, click that, then select new. And I'm going to click assign with just this whitish color that's on there. Pressed A to deselect. Now I'm going to go back to object mode. Okay, I'm going to hold shift and the middle mouse button pan. I'm going to click these windows, go to edit mode, hover over the windowsills near this, steps, press L, go to select similar, go to area, then hold control and press L. I press control and L because when you do that select similar, you don't grab all the faces of that windowsill. Control L makes you grab that. So now with that done, I'm going to click new. This time I'm going to pick a orangish color. And then I have the bottom windowsill selected, so I'm going to hold control, press I. That lets me select a inverted selection, so I select everything but the windowsill, and then that lets me go to this plus that's to the right, then select new. I'll make this a darker gray color, and then select assign. Press A to deselect. Go here to go to object mode. Okay, when you look here, you can see how sharp this is. So what we can do is, with those clicked on, we'll go to edit mode. We'll press A to select all of them. We'll hold Control, press B, hold Shift for a smooth select. I'm beveling the edges. So now I'm going to left click, and I have this edge here. So now I look to my left where I have my bevel options. I'm going to take this segments up to 4. And I'm going to press A to deselect, and now when I go back, you can see that now we no longer have that hard edge there. Okay, I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to click here. Here is on these objects on top. That's what I mean. I'm going to click Edit, press A to select all of them, hold Control, press B. I'm going to hold Shift while I pull. I'm going to left click. So I beveled. I'm going to look through my segments. I'm going to take this to 2, 3, 4. I'm then going to press A to deselect. Then go to Object Mode. Then I'm going to select New. I'm going to click here. What is that? Material 2. So you can click you can see all the materials that I've selected here so far. I like that material 2. So for this, I'll click New. I think in I'm going to select material 2. Shift sometimes because I wasn't, when you edit this, I wasn't sure if I colored that before. So anyway, this is material 2 now. So I'm going to click here, do the same thing, go to edit mode, press A to select everything, hold Control, press B, holding Shift, make sure that you get enough of a bevel. So now I'm letting go of Shift, and the bevel settings, remember that last time I had segments of 4, so I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to click here. Here is near the bottom. Clicking from edit mode to go to object mode. I'm going to click, I'm on the materials. I'm going to click new. I'm going to a little circle above surface. I'm going to select, rolling my mouse now, material 2. Now I'm pressing A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to zoom back. I'm going to click on our fire escape, go to the modifiers, and then click Apply All. Click on this fire escape, select Apply All, holding Shift and middle mouse button to pan, clicking on this fire escape, and then selecting Apply All. Okay, I'm going to click here, apply this modifier as well. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back, hold the middle mouse button to pan to view, hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan again. I'm going to select this geometry up top. I'm going to left click near the bottom, go to edit mode, press A to select, hold Control, press B, hold Shift and the middle mouse button. I press Shift and B and then pull back to bevel. Now I'm looking to my bevel menu, and I'm going to take this to 2, 3, 4. Then I'm going to press A to deselect. Then I'm going to left click near the bottom and go back to object mode. Okay, I'm going to hold Shift, then press B in object mode. This makes you zoom in. Select it here. I'm going to go to my material tab, select new. And then I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to select material 2. I'm going to then press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to hold Shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm getting an angle that I can place the camera to look upon. So I'm now going to go to View, Align View, and then I want to select Align active camera to view, and here is the view now. So the camera is this square right here. Okay, so I'm going to press N to bring up the properties panel. I'm going to select lock camera to view right here. And what this does is this allows me to control the camera view just like I was controlling the regular Blender view. So I'm going to hold control and the middle mouse button to zoom back. And basically what I'm doing is I'm lining up what I want to have in the view of the camera. So I want the things I build, I want to basically make this look good, what we see here in the camera. So now I'm going to unclick lock camera to view. Okay, these here are their own separate objects. I'm just going to select new. I'm clicking the steps and just making sure they have their own material. Now I'm going to hold Alt, press H to unhide this geometry we made here before. I'm going to left click here. I'm going to go to edit mode. So I left clicked on what's going to be our sidewalk basically. I'm going to press A to select all of that. I'm going to press U, and then I'm going to select Smart UV Project. Select OK. I'm then going to go to my Material tab, select New, go to my Texture tab, select New, go to Open, click this four square button there, select our concrete, and then select Open Image. So now we have that. I'm going to scroll down near the bottom. In our Texture tab, I'm going to change the size to 5, then 5. Okay, I'm going to change it to 10. I like 10 better. This grid view is kind of getting in the way, so I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to click Display. And then I'm going to look for Grid Floor, and I'm going to uncheck Grid Floor. Okay, with this selected, this sidewalk, I'm going to hold Shift, press D, right click, move this to the side over here like this. I'm going to click here, press S to scale on the Y-axis. See that preview line? I don't want that. I want it going from side to side, from what looks like side to side. So I'll press X. Now I can see the preview line, and I'll use that just to scale this here. I'm going to press S to make this bigger. I'm going to click here. Holding Shift and middle mouse button to pan. And I'm just moving this forward so this lines more up with that. Now I'm going to go to, I'll go to my display and I'll select View Camera. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to click here, press H to hide that. I'm going to click on the lights. To temporarily hide them. Now what I'm going to do is press Z, go to wireframe mode. I'm going to hold control. While holding control, I'm going to hold the right mouse button so I can draw a lasso select around our buildings. I'm then going to press Z and then select solid. Okay, with all of these selected, I'm going to hold Shift just to make sure I have. They should all be selected. And then I hold Shift to have this be the last selected building. I'm now going to hold Control, then press J. Okay, and now you can see that all of these are highlighted orange, so they are all one object, which is good because that's what we want. Okay, I'm going to go near the bottom, change this from solid mode back to material mode. And then with this object, is one object that has all of the buildings, or these group of buildings anyway. I'm going to go to our modifier tab, which looks like a wrench. I'm going to click here, go to array. So now we have that array modifier. I'm going to hold Alt, then press H. Okay, so let me check the camera view. I'm going to go to view camera. That looks good. Okay, so with this selected, I'm going to press S, then Y. Nope. X. There we go. Just to make this fit better, I'm going to press S, then Y. Good. I'm going to click here. I'm going to select copy. So I have this other array here. I'm going to change this to 0. I'm going to take this Y. I'll go the other direction and move this over here like that. I'm also going to hold Shift, press C. I'm going to hold Shift, press A to bring up our Add To menu. I'm going to select Mesh and then select Plane. Press S to scale this plane up. Push that plane down. I'm going to add a dark gray material. And then see the shininess on here? What I'm going to do is I'm going to lower down the specularity and you'll see that shininess going away. I'm now going to select View Camera. Okay. Okay, when you look at the street here, you see how smooth it is? I want this color, right? However, I don't want this to be that smooth. So a quick way that you can have this not look smooth like this, but maintain the color is I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to select U, select Smart UV Project, select OK. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm then going to go to object mode. I'm going to go to the texture tab, scroll up, select new, go to open, click our 4 square button here, select our concrete. Now you see it has this color. I don't want that color. I'm going to scroll down. Okay, so you see this size here. Let's take this to 10. Y to 10. Let's try 5. That looks decent. I'm going to unclick color, right? So you might sit there and say, well, why would you do that? Because I want the color to be the color I have. I just don't want this smoothness. Now I'm going to click geometry. And now this is very rough, too rough. So I'm going to click this normal and then select 0.1 and then enter. So now I have roughness on the street with the color that I want. And normals are a way of basically making it look like you have geometry that you don't. So if you're in a situation where you want roughness, but you want the color of your material, this is one technique that you can use. Okay, there's 2 add-ons that I didn't tell you to turn on that you're going to need for this next part. Go to File, User Preferences, go to Add-ons, and then put a check mark next to Add Curve, Sapling, Tree Gen. And I believe this is the one. Put a check mark next to Add Mesh, Extra Objects. I want to put a traffic light right here. One way that's pretty easy to do this is with the extra object. I'm going to hold Shift, press A. This brings up our Add to menu. I'm going to look for mechanical. I'm then going to go to pipe joints, and then I'm going to go to T joint, pipe T joint. That's it. This here. I'm going to press S to scale this down. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. Okay, I want to make this a little bit less thick. So with that selected, I'm going to go to edit mode. With this selected, I'm going to hold Alt, press S, hold Shift for fine selection, and then move my mouse up. And Alt S is a special kind of scale that makes things fatter as well as skinnier. I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to go to Edge Select, hold Alt, click this bottom edge right here. Because I selected that bottom edge, I selected that entire loop. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, press S to scale in. I'm then going to press E to extrude, right click, and then push this down. Left click. Resting. Enter. My mouse, there we go. Okay, I see. If you ever try to see what I'm trying to zoom and I'm like zooming extremely slowly in, I'm rolling out mouse go the other way and zooming extremely slowly back. If you press the number pad period key, that should fix that. I believe you go to view. Line view. I think it's view selected. That fixes it as well. And when I say it, I'm talking about just having your mouse not zoom well. So push this down here like this. I'm gonna press L to select this entire piece. Press S to scale. Okay, so I'm going to hold Control and the middle mouse button to zoom in, hold Shift and the middle mouse button to pan, press A to deselect. I'm going to, with edge select still on, I'm going to hold Alt, click this edge, press E to extrude, right click, press S to scale in, hold Shift and middle mouse button to pan, hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, and then have this pole come out just like that. I'm now going to hold Shift, press S, and then choose Cursor to selected. Okay, so we have the 3D cursor right here. So what we're going to do is we are going to hold Shift, press A to bring up our Add to menu. We're then going to select the cube. We're then going to press S to scale on the X axis. Holding the middle mouse button, rotate. I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis. S to scale on the Y axis. S to scale on the X axis. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hover over here. I'm going to press A to deselect. I'm going to hold Control. While holding Control, press R. I did that to put a loop cut in. That's what that line is right there. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel one time. I have 2 loop cuts. I'm going to left click once and then left click a second time to lock those loop cuts in. I'm going to press A to deselect now. I'm now going to go to face select. I'm then going to go to my pivot point options. I'm going to change this from Blender's default pivot point, which is the medium point, to individual origins. I'm doing this because I'm going to hold Shift and select these faces here. I'm letting go of Shift so I can hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm holding Shift again. Now I'm letting go of Shift, holding the middle mouse button to rotate. And using this individual origins and what I'm about to do now, which is Alt-E. Alt-E brings up our extrude menu. Then I can select individual faces. I'm going to left click there. I'm going to right click now. With that extrude individual faces, each of these faces is considered its own separate face. If I didn't do extrude individual faces, when I scale down, all of these would scale together. Each of these faces will scale individually. These ones and the ones on the other side. So I'm going to press S to scale. Okay, now that I have these faces scaled and selected, I'm going to press W, and then I'm going to select subdivide. Okay, so with these faces selected, I'm going to press W. I'm going to go up to Loop Tools, and I'm going to select Circle. Okay, so now that I have a circular shape, I'm going to press E to extrude, right-click, then I'm going to press S to scale in. I'm going to left-click. I'm going to hold Control while holding your middle mouse button and pushing in. I'm now going to press E to extrude, and I'm going to push out. The reason why I'm doing that, I just pushed out because I wanted these to come out on the other side. So normally I would press, I would right click. This time I didn't because I wanted the extrusion to come out here and on the other side at the same time. Okay, so now I am going to press E to extrude, right click, press S to scale. Then I'm going to press E to extrude, and then I want this to go in the other way. So I'm going to left click. And I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do now is hold the middle mouse button, rotate. I'm going to make sure I'm on face select, and I am. I'm going to click here, hold shift. I'm selecting 4 faces. I let go of shift just to rotate the view. Then I hold shift again so I can select more than one face at a time. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Holding shift. I'm letting go of shift. Okay, I'm holding control and the middle mouse button to rotate the view. Now I'm going to press E to extrude. Come out like this. I'm going to left click. And I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, I'm going to go to edge select. I'm going to hold shift, hold alt, select here. I really don't want these inside pieces, so I'm going to press C, hold the middle mouse button to deselect inside pieces. And the reason why is because I want to bevel this. So now with these edges selected here, I'm going to hold control, press B. Left click, and I go to my bevel options and take the segments up to 4. 2, 3, 4. Then press A to deselect. Okay, so I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to press C to select these inside faces here. Press C. Let go. So I have right click to get out of C just so I can turn the view. I'm going to press H to hide. I'm going to hover here, press L, go to my material tab, select new, click diffuse and select a yellowish color. I'm going to hold Alt, then press H to bring these back. You know what I can do to make this easier? I can actually separate these. So I have all these faces here selected, so I'm going to press Y and then right click. What that did is now I can just press L, select here. I'll click a new color. Red. Select the sign. Click here. orange, yellow sign. Over here, I'll press L. New color, or the plus, then new color. Or new, I should say. Green. And then now, since I have those colors all set up, I can just go here. And then just go through them. So L. Over here, press L. Just a sign. So now I'm going to click here and then go to object mode. Let's check this through the camera view. What we can do is take this, hold shift, press D, right click. And see how the dot for this is over there, so I'm going to go, and the dot's the pivot point. I'm going to click Object, Transform, Origin to Geometry. And now I'll just move this here. Just start to rotate on the Z axis. 180. I'll press A to deselect. Okay. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to come out of that view. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to hold shift, press A. I'm then going to, this brings up our add to menu. This time I'm going to go to curve, go over, and then I'm going down to sampling, tree gen. So I'm going to left click, and we see this curve right here. You don't want to click on that curve or anything. That's a tree. That's one of the add-ons I told you about that's included in Blender. You just have to activate it like I showed it to you. So this menu here pops up, and this helps you set this tree up. So we're going to scroll down. See where it says load preset? We're going to select small maple. We're now going to scroll up where it says geometry. We're going to click here. We're going to select leaves. And then we have this option there that says show leaves. We're going to left click here. All right, so now we're going to left click on the geometry, hold shift, and then click again because the leaves and the tree geometry are separate. We'll move this over. We'll press S to scale. Holding control in the middle mouse button to zoom in. Be aware these trees have a decent amount of geometry to them. I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click. Holding control in the middle mouse button to zoom back. I'm going to hold shift, press D. Move that back, hold shift, press D. I'm going to go to my display tab, select view camera. I'm going to hold shift, press D because I'm still selected on the tree, even though it's, you really can't see it too well. Okay, I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, these trees are curves. However, you can color them just like you would. I'm holding shift and middle mouse button to pan, just like you would color a regular mesh. So I'm selected on the leaves now. I'm going to select new, go to diffuse and then select a green color for the leaves. I'm then going to click on the actual tree, select new, go to diffuse, and then select a brown color. I'm going to press A to deselect. Okay, so this brown material is material 21. The leaves are material 20. So I'm going to hold shift and middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to click on the tree, click new, click here, select material 21, and click on the leaves. Whoops. There we go. Click new. And we want material 20. Same thing. New. Material 21. Then for the leaves, new. Material 20. Hold shift and middle mouse button to pan, hold the middle mouse button to rotate, control and the middle mouse button to zoom in, hold shift and middle mouse button to pan, control, while holding the middle mouse button and pushing in. So click new, material 21, new, material 20, new, material 21, new, material 20. Then press A to deselect. I'm going to hold control and middle mouse button, zoom, hold shift and middle mouse button, pan, control and middle mouse button, zoom, shift and the middle mouse button. I'm going to click view camera. What's going on here? That's strange. Oh, there we go. It's zoomed in. Camera. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I like how this looks. Okay, I had done some other tutorials dealing with making cities, and those tutorials I really didn't deal with texturing. So I wanted to make this tutorial to show you some of the different work that you could do as far as texturing, and I will put links to some of the other tutorials. If you look to your upper right hand corner and click on the, I believe it's an eye, you'll be able to get to those tutorials, and hopefully you'll be able to take some of the ideas from those tutorials and use them in this tutorial, and take some of the ideas from this tutorial and use them in those tutorials. Okay guys, that's it for the tutorial. For all of those of you out there who like the videos on this channel and we share them, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And for those of you who are new to this channel, if you like the videos on this channel, you would like to see more, please subscribe, and thank you for viewing.